What's up, guys? We are in Hoover, Alabama, and last week, this apartment complex behind me just sold for $17 million, 241 units, and we're talking to one of the owners. Someone who's in our mastermind group here locally in Alabama is Candace Pilgrim. What's going on today, Candace?
Happy to be here. We're excited to acquire this complex, and we have a lot of good plans for it, so can't wait to get started.
I'm excited to talk to you about this because we're going to go look at some units. So we want to see, you said there's 90 or so vacant right now of the 241. So just kind of, before we get into all that, I'd love for you to just kind of talk me through how this deal even came together. How did you even become aware of it? And then all that it entails to put a deal like this together.
Yeah, so my partner, Jeremy, which is the director of acquisitions for Astra, he was the one that was introduced to the deal first because he has the broker relationships for our team. He actually saw this deal the day we closed our last deal, which was 92 units in Homewood. The same broker essentially said, y'all want to do another one? And showed us this one. This one had just fallen through, so it was under contract previously for like $20.5 million. It had fallen through. Their debt was due. Previous owner had a mortgage coming due, so they were in a tough spot. A lot of distress here, which we can talk about. So it was kind of you got to close, and you got to close quick. If you want it, you can have it, for this highly discounted price. So we made it happen, and we closed faster than any other deal that we've ever closed.
So for those that don't know, because I don't even really know, the only little bit I know is just from knowing you and hearing you speak. But for those that don't know, how in the world do you even get in a position to bring $17 million together to be able to close on a property like this?
Yeah, so you have your debt piece, right, which in this case was $15.8 million was the loan that we took to buy this. The remainder is a combination of our own capital and then investor capital as well. So we raise capital from passive investors in this case. This is a syndication, so we have limited partners. We run the deal, we operate the deal, but the limited partners simply put in capital, get checks quarterly, share in the profits from the sale, and they own a piece of the LLC, but we all come together to buy this.
And it's not just 17 million either, because you guys have to bring a lot more money to the table because you're going to be renovating a lot of units. So Can you kind of talk about that piece of how much capital does it actually take? How much do you raise? How much do you bring? I mean, you mentioned the debt already, and then what are you going to do to the property?
Yeah, so this is a $4 million renovation plan. So that is added on top to the capital we had to raise as well. And then there's other sources and uses that go into that, all the closing cost and the negative carry. There's a little bit of negative carry on the front end because
What's that?
So essentially when we first buy the property, we're right at like break even on the bank note. So we want to have a little cushion there in case, things go a little further south than we expect the first few months. Okay. We're only 60% occupied here. So obviously once we're 90%, it'll be a cash cow, but we have to fill up first. And we anticipate a lot of residents will leave. So it'll probably go backwards before it goes forward.
Why would they leave?
Because we'll probably have to kick out some. The previous owner was in a situation where they didn't have money to turn units. So obviously it's kind of a different resident profile that's willing to accept a unit that's not truly rent ready. So there's some of that going on. It's not terrible, and it's kind of hard to know because it's early. We've only owned it for like 3 days. But there's definitely, I know there's 4 evictions already underway, so there's 4 more gone. And then we'll probably have a little bit more cleanup to do on that end. Occupancy will probably drop in the 50s for a minute.
Yep. And you mentioned that the previous owner, they were under contract for $20.5 million, and then you come in for 17. I mean, I feel like that's a huge gap there, but they were up against the gun.
They had no choice. They were in a really tough position to be in because the occupancy being so low, it didn't qualify for agency debt, which is what the majority of groups would want to place on this. Agency debt is non-recourse, and with a deal this size, most people, other operators want non-recourse debt.
Which means they can't come after you personally.
Correct. So debt is tricky with an asset like this that's highly distressed. We were willing to put recourse debt on it and put our names on the line because we feel confident we're going to succeed. So that's, I guess, a competitive edge we had that a lot of other groups wouldn't be willing to do. And, just not as many people willing to buy it. and their timeline was short. So it's just really, we were in the right place at the right time. The seller had literally no other choice. In addition to that amazing price, we also got a $600,000 credit at closing from the seller. So our net is actually 16.4.
So I'm just, again, I come from the single family world, so I'm trying to understand if there's a lot of equity in it. It seems like, right, at least on the back end.
Yeah.
Why couldn't, or how couldn't the previous owner come up with, like, do a raise of their own and start getting these things? Because that's what y'all are going to do. You're going to get these things rent ready,
right.
Turn them the right way.
Yeah. If
they couldn't turn them before, if it's such a great asset and there's so much equity in it, why couldn't they raise money? And I know you're not in their business, but
yeah, well, that is what a lot of groups are doing that are in trouble right now. So other distressed sellers are doing a second capital raise or placing pref equity on a deal to do what you just said. In this case, they didn't have time because their debt was coming due. So it takes a lot of time to put together a package to go raise money, then time to raise that money, then time to mobilize on the renovations. The problem was before they could do all that, plus actually bring occupancy up, they would have been foreclosed on. So they were really in a situation where they either chose to sell to us or be foreclosed on. Now, a year ago, they could have absolutely did what you said, but they thought they were getting out close to break even when they were under contract for 20.5. And these things, they take usually about 3 months to close or more. So you would really just have to play out that timeline, and then you'd understand, like, they thought they were good. They paid $20.7 million. They were going to sell for 20.5. They would have lost some money,
but they probably would have made money because they're getting rents all this time too. Maybe.
Yeah. They owed a lot of contractors. So by the time they paid off everybody in Hoover they owe, they would have definitely lost.
A little bit closer to it.
Sorry.
Making sure. So you were the benefits of that. You're the beneficiary of that, getting a really good deal over here. So 90 or so units and there's going to be more. You already mentioned there's some evictions underway. Yeah. What are you guys going to do to the property? You've already gone through a name change. You're going to change the branding of it. So, but what else are you going to actually do to the property?
So whereas our typical deal is more of a value add where you go in and renovate units and raise rents, this one's different because this one, given the level of distress, our primary goal is stabilize. So most of the $4 million renovation budget is really going towards deferred maintenance. We definitely have some improvements planned, but a large chunk of it is deferred maintenance. So most of these roofs need replacing. I think at least 15 or 16 of these buildings will have full roof replacements. There's parking lot repairs needed, restriping needed, a lot of plumbing repairs needed because that's what caused a lot of the leak situations. So we have a plumber going through all the units, amenity upgrades, there's carpentry repairs. There's some balconies that are not structurally sound. They're taped off with caution tape on the other side of the property, so we'll have to address those right away. So for exterior and landscaping, I mean, if you had been here last week, it looked 10 times worse. I mean, like high weeds, bushes growing over the sidewalk. So this was just the day after we closed. This was our day one, just initial cleanup on landscape. But we have a 6-figure landscaping budget alone because it's been neglected for a very long time. Yeah. So on exterior, that's the gist of it. On interiors, our budget on a unit interior ranges anywhere from $3,500 on the low end to $45,000 on the high end. So it depends. There's some units that have to be full gut renovations, and then there's others that we're just trying to bring back up to, rent ready conditions.
Right. So I would love to go take a look at a couple of these units. Can we do that?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So there's a lot of vacants. So we're going to go and take a look at some, and I'll probably ask you some more questions.
Okay.
As we do that.
Sure.
Right. So Candace, as we walk over here to a unit, talk me through, with this many units, it seems like, I've already seen some of the new staff in there. You've brought in your own staff like immediately. This is just a few days. So what all staff is included, and how do you do something that big so quick?
Yeah, so at this deal, we have 5 full-time on-site employees. We have a community manager, a leasing specialist, which reports to the community manager. And then on the maintenance side, we have 3 full-time employees. So we have a maintenance supervisor and then 2 maintenance techs under him.
How do you find those people, and how do you get them in place so quickly?
So usually we hire completely fresh We don't keep on-site staff or anything of that nature. This deal's different. What's interesting is the seller actually switched property management a few months before they sold to us, and the staff that property management company brought in were phenomenal. Our community manager and the 3 maintenance were all from that property management company, and they were willing to stay on with us. We did have to hire one brand new, which was our leasing specialist, and that was just from an Indeed ad. We had Haley, which is our community manager. She played a part in those interviews to make sure that they could just work well together.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, where are we going?
We're going to go right up here. We may find some contractors in some of these units because I don't know which ones they're working on today.
And you guys are based out of Birmingham, or you do a lot of deals in Birmingham, I should say.
Yes. So I actually live in Hoover, not very far from here. And most of our deals are in the Jefferson, Shelby County areas. We have a few spread out throughout Alabama in other locations, but.
So this doesn't look terrible. Tell me what you would do you got carpet. Tell me what you would do in a unit like this.
So this unit during our pre-walks was actually marked maintenance make ready, which means we don't have to have an outside contractor come in for this one. The maintenance team can make ready. It doesn't have power, so I can't see the carpet, but usually if the carpet is stained or on its last leg, we would go ahead and replace with the luxury vinyl plank flooring. So this unit would probably be, trying to look at the walls to see, they might have already touched them up, either a touch-up paint or a full paint, depending on what the walls look like, possibly flooring. We would keep these countertops and keep these appliances. It's already got a black appliance set. So this is one of those, like I said, the range of renovations here is from $3,500 to $45,000. This would be a $3,500 or less make ready. This is a 1-bedroom unit.
Okay, and what in your new, I guess with the new ownership, what were these 1-bedrooms rented for, and what will they rent for?
So that's one thing that differs about this deal versus all of our other deals. Like I mentioned earlier, we're not really trying to raise rents here. We're catering, we're trying to position ourselves as being the affordable complex in Hoover. So this unit before was renting for around $950, and after renovation, it's not really renovating, but after being rent ready, it's going to be a $950 rental.
Okay.
That's base rent, so all the utilities and everything are added to that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now we are premium renovating a small subset, probably like 10, 15, 20 max units, where we're going to go in with quartz counters, stainless steel appliances, tile backsplash, really just make, a different lighting package, more modern, just to kind of prove concept and also give people, give the resident or the prospective tenants choices, so we can cater to a wider net of people. For sure.
Can we maybe take a look at one more? I don't know if you have one that you know of that's in real bad shape.
You want to see you can't go in the really bad ones.
Oh, because there's mold remediation going on.
Yes, you literally can't go in them. You literally can't even stand 2 feet outside of them without feeling sick. But I can take you there if you want.
I know this one's a little bit different because you feel like it was such a great deal, but is it, by this point, it's probably just business as usual?
What do you mean business as usual?
Like we just ho-hum, we just bought another one. All right, on to the next.
A little bit, but this one is definitely a lot more time intensive. We've done way more pre-purchase work. Like if you added all the hours, and I don't just mean that we spent acquiring it, I mean on like the asset management and business plan standpoint. If you add all the hours we spent pre-closing, it would far surpass any other deal we've bought.
Why is that?
We knew based on the size of this project and how many vacant units we had day one, we had like 95 vacants here. We knew how important it was. Like every day is money. Like the more we can get ahead of it and be churning and leasing day one, the better, for us, for investors, for everybody. So we already had all that planned out. Like we pre-walked before closing and already had a list for contractor A, a list for contractor B, scopes of work for those contractors. We had by the week planned out which maintenance make-readies were happening. So like our on-site maintenance team, they were going to do the first 3 units this week, then the next 3 units next week. And then our community manager and our leasing specialist were also coordinating with their ads they're pushing out to make sure they're pre-leasing for the appropriate dates. So all of that was pre-planned before we ever owned the deal. We had all that. All the materials were ordered. The golf cart was ordered. Like everything was ordered before we ever closed.
Is that scary in a sense? Because what if it doesn't close?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's possible for sure. Like it's just a risk like anything else. Like the amount of earnest money we had on the line was far greater than the amount we're spending in materials and all that time. So I guess, you know, comparatively speaking, if we didn't close, we were going to lose a lot of money anyway. So what's 300,000 versus 375, you know?
So
it's like,
so
go big or go home.
So tell me about the earnest money though, because we obviously know how that works for single family real estate, but what about for something like this? Is there a certain, like when you actually initially submit the offer, does it go, is it like immediate? How does it work?
So we have like a certain number of days, I think it was 5 days in this case, to deposit the earnest money with title. We're in escrow after we sign the PSA. So then once we deposit, I believe we had a 20-day due diligence on this one. So that means during that due diligence period, we're able to do all of our inspections and get in the units and have third parties out here inspecting everything. And if we were to find something that we are not okay with, we could get our earnest money back during that time before it, as they say, goes hard or goes non-refundable.
So after the 20 days, if you're still in the deal, it's going, you know,
Yes.
it's non-refundable at that point.
Yes.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, where are we headed?
We're going to head back to the back right corner if
Okay.
you want to see a rough unit.
Okay, so Candace, you mentioned that there's 18 units that you've identified as mold. How did you even identify those?
You'll see how you identify in a minute. You can't walk in them. It's pretty obvious.
Is it that obvious though? Like, what are you looking for someone who may not necessarily know?
Oh, it's that obvious. Imagine black walls, black floors, black ceilings, and a smell that knocks you down when you open the door.
But how does that go on? How does that happen for so long?
Yeah, so since the previous owner was undercapitalized, anytime they had a water leak, they couldn't afford to repair it. So they just let the leak continue.
Okay.
So, obviously water leak over time, no airflow equals microbial growth. So,
right.
They owed a lot of plumbers around Birmingham, and so a lot of plumbers weren't returning their calls and so forth.
So you mentioned earlier about I forgot what you said exactly. Contractor A, contractor B. Is that what you said? Contractor 1, contractor 2?
Yeah, so we have multiple contractors. Since we have 90 plus vacants, we didn't want to award too many units to one single contractor.
Why is that?
What if that contractor had something happen to where they weren't able to complete units on time? Or there's just things that can always happen, right, with scheduling, and we want to make sure we always have units to lease. So we figured out the gate a better approach would be, and these are all contractors we've used before, but better approach would be to give groupings of units to different contractors. That way, if one fails, we got units from the other one. We've always got enough. What we don't want is leads, people that want to lease and no units to give them. So we don't want to be in that position.
For sure. No, it's smart. It's not really something you think about in the single family world. Although, now that you say that, maybe there are ways. Okay, so is this going to be a situation where we kind of would hope that we could capture the smell on video? Or hope not?
Our viewers might not be viewers anymore. So this is a telltale sign, right? Look at all the moisture on this door and literally coming out of this unit. That's how bad this unit is.
But how?
Leaks. This one may have active sewage. our plumber is working through. So I know the contractor we have doing the mold remediation, there were 6 out of the 18 that they didn't start on day one because our plumber still has to get in and stop the active leaks before they can get in. This is probably one of those given this situation. He must not have got in this one yet. Oh look, there's no lock. You can go right in.
Is it really that bad? All right,
it's gonna be bad, I'm sure. I don't remember this one specifically, but it's probably pretty bad. Oh, they've already started. They pulled flooring, I guess.
Okay, that's about as far as we're going to go, but let me ask you a couple questions about this. So, with this being a bottom unit and there's 2 floors, how does this affect anything about, does it spread up the walls? Is this like you'll have to get everybody out of the whole building kind of thing?
So it's not out of the whole building, but in a lot of cases, like I'm guessing the unit above is vacant because I know in a lot of the cases with these really bad mold ones, the one above is vacant and mold as well. So I don't know about this one. I don't have a rent roll right now, but that's probably the case.
But if the HVAC, vents are all kind of attached, everything's kind of attached.
Right, yeah. So for sure, there shouldn't be people living next to it, but there are. So we're getting in and remediating right away. So we're not going to have to move anybody. I mean, this will be done by the end of this week because the crews are literally on site addressing it right now. We just closed at the end of last week. So I think our plan, rather than addressing the potential for everyone around, is just take care of it immediately. That way we don't have to relocate anybody.
And that is something that's pretty impressive. Like when I drove up, because I knew you just closed literally days ago, and you've already got the branding, you've already got your staff is in there. This is literally just a few days. And you've already got people here. You've already got stuff happening. That's pretty impressive. I just think about a flip that somebody might do on a single family. I know people will let it go like a week or 2 before they even have somebody.
I'm going to walk over here. I smell the mold. I'm going to get sick. Like, Okay.
But just getting it so fast. Yeah. Everything's happening so fast.
Well, that's why I mentioned all the prep work that went into this one. That's why. I mean, typically when we close a deal, we're not quite as prepared 2 days in as we are on this one. But given the size of the project and how many vacant units we had and just the massive undertaking of it, we knew how important it was to plan all that in advance.
Now, Candace, as we walk back, I just want to kind of ask you maybe some basic type of questions. Just something maybe someone who just thinks that investing in apartments is especially something that's, you're in Hoover. I mean, this is a really good area of town. 241 units. It seems like this is so far above and beyond anything the normal average person could do in real estate. Like a lot of times when you read about, such and such apartment complex sold for $17 million. You just think it's some, private equity firm or hedge fund that came in and did this, but you're just a regular person, someone I've known for many, many years. Just talk about maybe your journey and about how maybe someone who's just an average person could be involved in a deal like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all relative, right? So like the person who's never bought a single piece of real estate, buying their first house is like a monumental task. It seems overwhelming to them. And then once they buy a few rentals, then maybe they buy a fourplex, and that seems like an overwhelming task to them. And then, it's always like as you scale up, 5 years ago, this would have seemed like so scary and monumental for me. So it's just that journey where you just kind of gradually scale up and it doesn't become scary anymore. Like, a 700 unit deal sounds intimidating to me right now. Like I feel like I couldn't do it, but maybe in 5 years you'll be videoing me and I'll be like, I just bought this 700 unit deal, so it's just all a part of just growing slow and smart.
Talk about that though, because talk about your personal journey, growing slow and smart. I feel like that kind of epitomizes who you are.
Yeah, so I started in single family, technically, like most other people in real estate. I initially had a goal to acquire single family rentals, and I realized after a couple of them that was going to take forever to really reach my financial goals. I got interested in multifamily because of the scalability aspect of it. I could buy a lot at one time rather than
with one loan.
Right, with one loan and all under one roof without or multiple roofs in this case, but very different than buying like a single family portfolio where they're spread out all over town. So I started studying, reading books and studying multifamily, attending some conferences, just trying to meet other people in the space. And I started passively investing first. So invested in 3 different multifamily deals with 3 different operators just to kind of figure out how it all works, peek behind the curtain. And then after that, I really just made it a goal to actively acquire my own properties. So started with a 40 unit, and that one my husband and I just bought it on our own without any partners or anything, and just learned the ins and outs really through that deal, because it was a distressed deal as well. It was around 50-60% occupancy when we bought it, which 20 vacants is a lot different than 95, but on a percentage basis it was still a lot of work. So I didn't have partners at that time, so I did everything on that deal. And from that deal, I kind of learned like what I like to do and like what I'm good at. And then that helped me, add to the Astra Equity partnership later in that journey.
And it's just for someone who maybe they've got some money and they never done anything with real estate, but they'd like to invest. Can I put all your contact information, maybe email address or something like that in the description?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always happy to talk to anyone, whether it's, because you're interested in investing with us and in these apartment complexes with us, or if you're wanting to get started, just as an active investor on your own. I'm always happy to answer any questions anyone has, help them get started, because I know I had help in the beginning, so I'd love to return the favor to anyone who needs it.
Awesome. Thank you, Candace. Appreciate you giving us a tour.
Thank you. Appreciate it.